Well, we got our Civic back to the Tech Garage compound. Let me tell you what's going on. I charged up the factory battery, drive it for a day or two, dead. Charge it up again, dead. I'm done with that mess. Rock Auto sent us a brand new battery. I got it in there ready to go. Only problem is we're dealing with a hybrid. There's no charging system, so it's going to be some in-depth diagnostics. Today on Tech Garage, we're going green. Welcome to Tech Garage, brought to you by rockauto.com. Well, we broke down and got a Civic in the shop. You know what? We're going green. Brian, here it is. We're talking hybrid today.
These things are interesting. You know, there's over 20 million of these cars on the road in America today, and many of them are over 10 years old, which is kind of the optimal performance window for hybrid battery packs. So a lot to learn here. I'm excited to dig in and see what's wrong.
Let me tell you what's going on. First of all, charged up the battery, drove it maybe a day, sometimes a half a day. No battery out here. I'm talking about the 12-volt battery, okay? Charge it up. I know it's a good battery. Once again, it's dead. So, man, I just put a brand new battery in it. We need to do some testing.
Still a problem. That's interesting because typically we'd go to the alternator as our next step and get the truth serum, find out what's going on, and figure out what do we do next. We don't have an alternator.
No, and it's probably the same concept. Let's go down here. I'm going to go down here, and if you would crank it up for me in a second, let's see what we got and see if it even raises voltage, because even with the battery pack, we should be showing something. So let's see what we got here. Brian, I got about 12.91. Go ahead and crank it up.
Okay, should charge up a little bit.
Yeah, you could shut it off. We're actually going the wrong way.
Really?
We actually went down to 12.5, 12.3. I mean, it's actually dying as we're getting into it.
So we have no way, we're not replenishing that voltage that we're using, so that sends me to the back of the vehicle with the appropriate equipment. I'll get access to that hybrid battery. We'll see what we can find out back there.
Yeah, some really cool stuff back there. Well, while he's doing that, let's go ahead and take a look at what a hybrid is and what's actually going on here. So if I switch the screen right here, you can actually see here, I got a couple of different types of hybrid. Well, what's a hybrid? It's a gasoline motor coupled with an actual electric motor. So the gasoline, or the ICE engine, internal combustion engine, this is a series. Now this is like your Prius. And what's happening here is the gasoline engine is running this generator right here. That's all it's doing. Then the generator's charging up the batteries, and then what happened? The electric motor's driving the car. So your Prius, the motor's there really only to charge the batteries. Now our Civic, on the other hand, a little bit different. It's a parallel hybrid. Now what's going on with that one is the motor is running here, and when the motor runs, the ICE, the internal combustion engine, it actually goes down and it feeds power to the axles. Now on ours, we're just using this motor over here, this motor generator, as kind of a helper. Think of it as a helper. Now this one's about 10 kilowatts and 13 horsepower. It's a little helper, but a helper nevertheless. So I'm shooting the power down and they're both bleeding into it. Now you see some with some high performance cars, they're putting some big electric motors in there. They're getting some horsepower gains along with the engine. So hybrid's out there and it's out there to stay. Now a series parallel hybrid, you actually have a power splitter that's going from the engine and the electric motor, and we're running them both and charging the battery. So they're getting a little more complex as we go along. But really the cool complexity is right behind that back seat. Let's take a look at it.
How many times on Tech Garage have you heard me say that access is sometimes the hardest part of the job? Well, here you go. You got 4 pounds of potatoes in a 3-pound bag back here, but I'm making it work. I've got the lower part of the seat out, the upper seat back out. That was only 4 10mm bolts. Then we had access to this master breaker. We threw that down to kill the power. It's the same as the power coming in from the street into the panel in your home. You're killing master power. Every hybrid vehicle is different, but we follow the manufacturer's recommended time interval before we do anything else after killing this power. But I took then the safety shield off with just some torque screws. Here's the integrated motor assist system. Here's the hybrid battery pack. This is the guy we're ultimately going to replace. But I want one more step of validation that all is safe and well back here. You set our meter in volts mode, rubber gloves up good up to 1,000 volts. Gotta have these on. And of course, we just want to check and see if we've got any voltage. There we go, none. I'm confident enough now that I could lose the gloves and actually finish the job. The next step is to disconnect the terminals right here where the battery pack goes over to the IMA. Very simple, 10mm bolt. Okay. And then the lower one, put them down. That's now free. I'm going to switch to a 12mm socket, which are the 4 mounting bolts for the hybrid battery pack. Very simple. Those are big brackets. They hold a lot of weight. You're going to see why in just a second. Keep in mind, this is a 13-year-old hybrid. Prime candidate for a new battery, which is why we're going to switch it out. Plus, remember, it's not charging. All right, there's the 4th mounting bolt. Battery pack is loose. One final step, the wiring harness into the processor, the brains back here, it comes out. Yeah, thank you, John. Hey, just remember, anytime you're dealing with orange wires in a hybrid, it's all high voltage. So that's why everything's orange for you. This thing's a beast, buddy.
Yep, you know what? I brought the big guns, no worries. As electrifying as this is, though, we got to take a short break. But don't go far, because we'll be back with more Tech Garage brought to you by rockauto.com. Oh, yeah. That is a monster.
Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com, is brought to you by Steel Rubber Products, quality crafted rubber parts and weather stripping. Magic Creeper, the most versatile creeper ever. And by RockAuto.com, all the parts your car will ever need.
Welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Now, with a little muscle and a few curls, man, we got these things over at the table, and I'll tell you, they're heavy. But RockAuto.com has the exact replacement, man. This is pretty good. If you look at the plugs here, Brian was mentioning the orange plug right here. That plugs in, and the white one right there. Our new pack, same thing. You got the orange plug, you got the white one. The breaker's right there. So I did a little visual inspection. Even the bracketry's on it. So the bracketry all matches up. You got the handles. This is going to go in there real well. Now, the cool part about these packs, they're all individual cells in here. These little cells in here, some of them have 22, some have more, but they're all wired up in there to make the high voltage to get the job done. Now let's take a look at this hybrid and how it actually works inside. Now we said earlier there's a hybrid and there's a gas motor. Well, if you look at this top graphic here, we're still going to need a fuel tank here to feed our engine, and then the high battery voltage is here. But we're actually running a motor generator, and the key word is a motor generator. So you come down to this bottom graphic right here. Well, what's it look like? Well, it looks like a starter motor and an alternator, hence the word a motor generator. It's pretty cool because you have a stator and you actually have the armature. So it can work as a motor to help push the car, and it can also work as a generator to actually charge the batteries. And that's what's sandwiched between right here in our Honda, between the actual transaxle and the gasoline engine. Now they also have what's called regenerative braking, and that's pretty cool here because when you hit the brakes, you can actually grab some of that energy, and you can see it right here. It has a motor generator 1, motor generator 2, and a rear motor generator. So when you hit the brakes, the energy's going up there. We're converting it through the inverter assembly, and we're recharging the battery packs. Speaking of these battery packs, I got to get them over to Brian. Let me get them set up.
At the beginning of the project, we showed you that 12-volt battery up front, remember the new one, wasn't getting enough replenishment voltage, but there's no alternator. So what that means is this new battery pack we're about to install has to convert down to 14 plus volts to keep that one replenished. That happens through a converter. Additionally, in this system, there's an inverter. It's got to take 3-phase electricity from that massive battery pack, step it down to alternating current, which gets the integrated motor assist system, gives that the power to work. The car's 13-year-old, a prime candidate to replace the battery pack anyway, so off we go. So John,
yep,
this is going to take 2 of us, buddy.
Sure is. Now I'll tell you what, Brian, I'm kind of rotate it down so you put the down part. I'll grab the top handle. It's pretty heavy. I curled it a few times. It's not that bad.
Yeah, I know, you're a beast.
I'm going to send it down. You grab the bottom one. I'll grab the top.
In your own mind.
There you go.
Yep. Okay, kind of come up, and we've got the breaker off on this new battery pack, of course. We got to go your way. Go that way a little bit.
There we go.
All right, protect all the
There it is.
connectors.
Yep.
Let's try to get, I'm going to come up.
There it is. Okay, great.
All right, really important to not damage anything.
Easy. Pull it up a little bit.
Go up a little bit.
Oh, look at that. Beautiful.
Right in line.
Hey, I'm lined up perfect. You couldn't have done that any better.
That'll hold it in place. Now, the connectors obviously only go one way. We're going to go ahead with the breaker off. We're going to go ahead and reseat these connectors. Hear the click. That was for the inverter. This is for the converter. Step it down. That's good. Breaker's still off. I'll get these tightened up, and hey buddy, we're about ready for a test drive.
We'll give a test ride at the end, make sure that everything's okay. We're going to go to the Garage Ed segment next. You don't want to miss it. Stick around. There's plenty more. Tech Garage brought to you by rockauto.com. All right, I got the last bolt out. We're ready to tear it apart for today's Garage Ed segment on alternators and charging systems. Welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by rockauto.com. We're talking about the alternator today. What is the alternator? What does it do? And how does it work? That's important. Well, an alternator is actually a mechanical driven component that charges your car. It charges it when the car's running. That's what happens. The battery supplies all electricity when it's not. When it's running, it's the alternator's job. Well, how does it work? Electromagnetic induction. That's a big word, hence the nice lab coat. We're going to go through here and we're going to look at induction. Now this is pretty cool because I can actually produce it here on the meter. That's when a wire cuts a magnet here and it induces a voltage. Watch that meter right here. I can actually prove it right here. So as I'm going up and down, you can see that actually flicking from a positive to negative. As I cut through there, I'm actually creating a voltage or a pressure into that wire with electromagnetic induction. Now you can take a look at this animation right here. This is pretty cool because we looked at a starter in a couple shows ago. This one here actually shows it spinning. What's happening is the rotor inside of the alternator spinning, it's magnetized and it's inducing a voltage out to those outer magnets, which is actually the stator assembly, and that's what's producing the voltage. I can show it to you right here in action. This would be the rotor, and what's going on, it's spinning inside your alternator. This is what's belt driven. Out here is the stator assembly. Now I have no external power supply going to this, and I can spin it, and you can see no matter which way I spin it, I'm producing a voltage here, and what's happening, it's an AC output. You can see that little LED light flicking. It's actually doing it with nothing. Now an alternator, we actually put a little voltage to it. I want to pull one apart and show you everything that's going inside. I got this one ready. I actually took off the voltage regulator right here, which is cool because these are the brushes that supply power to the actual rotor assembly. I'll show you that. Here's my end frame. You got some bushings inside of here. We'll do some diagnosis in the next show. We'll look at what goes wrong with that. And then I want to show you some of the components inside this thing. So if I separate this, you can see the front quarter. And then right here is the heart of the alternator. This is actually the rotor assembly. The rotor assembly has these claw poles all on here and a big wire winding in there. I'm going to magnetize in a little while because this actually makes a ginormous magnet, and that's what induces voltage into this stator assembly. Now the stator assembly takes that, and there's different phases. It's 3-phase, could be delta wound, could be Y wound, but I'm inducing a voltage in there, but it's an AC voltage. So we have to convert it with a rectifier or a diode trio, some way to send it out as a DC voltage. Now this is a cool part too, because this feeds the voltage into the actual rotor assembly. Alternator only charges what a battery needs. So what a battery needs is going to be determined by the voltage in on the voltage regulator side, and we're going to magnetize this. Check this out. This thing is a ginormous magnet. Now, this would be demonstrating basically full fielding if I was putting all the voltage to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook this up right here on this side, and then I'm going to complete the circuit. And when I complete the circuit, I'm going to turn this rotor assembly into a giant magnet. I'm going to get rid of this stuff because it's such a big magnet, it's probably going to suck it right into it. So if I put the socket right there and I magnetize this joker like that right there, and then I take that magnet, bam, and I release it, and that goes. I mean, I could put it right there and it pulls it in. I could wheel it up. So that's what's happening. You're full fielding this ginormous magnet. When you full field that, you're actually charging your system and everything's good to go. Now there's a lot of components here, but Rock Auto has a lot to talk about when it comes to charging systems. Well, the alternator is the heart of the system. It has to produce all that electrical power while the car is running. Tom, the truth of the matter is, I mean, these cars today, they are riddled with electronics, and they keep becoming more and more and more, and the alternator has to keep up, and they're suffering. I mean, they're having a hard time keeping up, creating a lot of heat in the process. What do you guys have for alternators?
Yeah, you're right. You hear about microprocessors doubling their output every 5 years or whatever. Well, there's been a quiet renaissance going on in alternators. Go back to 1955, we have a generator for a full-size Chevy. Generators were kind of like starter motors, one winding. They would not be able to have great output if the engine's just idling or at low RPM. Yeah, so I click on the info button, I see, oh, this generator has 30 amp output. Well, if I go 20 years into the future, and I look at a 1975 full-size Chevy, see what its alternator's putting out, I see 63 amps. So in 20 years, we've doubled the output of the alternator. We moved to alternators and doubled the output.
It's cool to mention we went from a generator to an alternator, so we were able to do that, but keep going, there's even more.
Yep, yeah, if we jump ahead another 20 years, go to a 1995 full-size Chevy, the output of the alternators increased to over 100 amps, 105 amps. And then we'll jump ahead another 20 years to 2015, fairly recently, full-size Chevy, and we're up to 170 amps.
Wow, yeah.
And today's cars, you have the electric seats and everything, some cars are well over 200 amps.
Well, stick around. There's a really interesting video question of the week right after this break. There's plenty more. Tech Garage presented by RockAuto.com.
Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com, is brought to you by Borla, the world's most winning exhaust. Zumbrota Drivetrain, remanufacturing redefined. And by RockAuto.com, all the parts your car will ever need.
Welcome back to Tech Garage, brought to you by RockAuto.com.
Well, it sounds like Zachary's got a problem when he's shifting. The car's grinding, whether it's a new car or an old car. They all shift the same. Check it out.
Hey, Tech Garage. I'm shifting through my transmission. It's making all kind of grinding noises. Should I replace my transmission or what?
Well, Zach, it sounds like you might need a transmission. If that's the case, Zumbrota offers an awesome manual transmission. But, you know, let's take a look inside and see what's going on, because there's a lot in there. Now, what happens, you have an input shaft right here, kind of brings the power into the transmission. It's spinning. Well, it has no direct connection to the output shaft on the other side. So what's happening when you're shifting gears there, Zachary, I'm going into these little synchronizers right here, and you can see these things move in and out. So when it's spinning, it moves over, bam, it locks that gear, goes down here through the counter shaft, comes up, delivers to one of the gears, bam, to the output shaft. First, second, third, whatever you get, as it's spinning, you lock that. Now, Brian, think about that. I mean, we're grinding the synchronizer on purpose. That's going to wear out over time. There's bearings on the ends Zumbrota has in there that actually supports it. Bearings on the front. You have the shift linkages, the detent. There's a lot going on inside that transmission.
There's a whole lot of technology in that entire mechanical process, from the clutch pedal through a slave cylinder, turning it into hydraulic action, then back to mechanical. And then if you've got any wear and tear on your clutch, your pressure plate, all of that gets in the way of a smooth transition like he just showed you.
Yeah, and they've been doing this for 30 years. I mean, they got an awesome transmission here.
Yeah,
we talked about all those seals.
So whether it's a replace, rebuild, whatever it is, you've got options these days for plug-and-play engineering. So Zumbrota's done a really good job with this transmission. The builder even puts his number on it right there. It says it's dyno tested. You know exactly what you're going to get. It's performing. They even tell you exactly what type of fluid you're going to need in that tranny and how to find that out. Of course, the speedometer cable connections, those are all protected. This could be a real easy plug-and-play solution for just about any application from Zumbrota.
Yeah, and absolutely. They go through the whole case. You can see it's all pressure blasted here, brand new. They inspect it for any cracks. Like you said, it's dyno tested. Think about that. The bearings right here, all the new bearings, seals in there. Now they're going to go through and inspect all the synchronizers as well, everything in there. If I was to rebuild this, Brian, man, I got a counter shaft, another shaft, an input shaft, I got bearings, I got synchronizers. They come apart in a million pieces. They're going to go through it so you know you have a good quality unit here, all right? It's all tested, everything's there, it's ready to go.
And of course, even if you are doing this, go ahead and replace the clutch and pressure plate. Use an alignment tool. That makes life so much simpler. And of course, you may have to re-bleed that hydraulic slave cylinder, that system as well. Make sure you got no air bubbles in there. And then from the time you depress that clutch with your foot all the way through a gear transaction, it's smooth, it's working properly, and there's multiple ways to get there. You just have to do a proper diagnostic and understand if you've got to plug and play a new tranny, you've got more options than ever, especially like this one from Zumbrota.
Sure, and you go to their website, they have some different options on there. You know, when you're doing the replacement, a couple of good tips for you. Sometimes you pull it out, it's got a pilot bushing on the front right here. Well, if you got a pilot bushing, sometimes they stay in the block. Now, I've seen guys do this. They put the one in there with a double pilot bush and bam, they're breaking that ear off trying to pull it in there. You got different tools, clutch spline tools that you're going to put inside of your clutch here, make sure it's all lined up. Make sure
Gotta
everything's
use
in
that.
good shape here. Make sure it's on the actual pilot bushing going into the flywheel right here. Everything's holding. And then your pilot bushings, when you put your plate in here, make sure you tighten the bolts equally. Why? You want to protect your new investment here. This is a great transmission. It's all quality tested. It's all controlled. Everything looks really good. The shafts are in there. I mean, feel that, Brian.
Yeah, it's very, very smooth. I love that.
Now remember, there's a main shaft that goes through there. You're spinning it right there. Broudy checks that for straightness, make sure that's perfectly so our gears are matching. And then speaking about the gears, every one of the gears are inspected. I mean each one of the tooth, because you have to have that perfect tooth pattern. You're going to have noise. This one here, absolutely perfect.
Absolutely. The thing I realized when I was on their website is they've got everything you need in a drivetrain solution. When we've got mechanical issues, we want solutions. So whether it's front wheel drive, rear wheel drive, the rear axle assembly we bolted on one of the earlier episodes, all the solutions are there. John, I even saw transfer cases, which got me thinking about a Jeep project I'm working on. So I love the Broudy transmission. I love how easy they've made it with all the engineering, and everything comes to you ready to go.
Yeah, a lot of options, just like a Honda Civic. You can get a gas motor or a hybrid. Hey, we went green. What do you think about that?
How about that? That was an interesting project. You can see all that technology behind the rear seat that you might never know otherwise, but it's got 14 volts coming back,
That's
right?
a
So
cool
we solved
part.
the problem.
Yep, cranked it up and bam, there it goes, 14 volts. We're in good shape. It's running great, no problem. We're in good shape, buddy.
Awesome. Hey, keep the feedback coming, all your questions. We love hearing from you guys on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And I tell you what, we got a great show next week. We'll see you then on Tech Garage, brought to you by RockAuto.com.
Production assistance for Tech Garage is provided by Chivolo College, located in Marianna, Florida. Founded in 1947, Chivolo was ranked recently as one of the top 3 community colleges in the United States.